Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 253, number 253 Greek Grassroots or the Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call, otherwise known as solartopia.org. We are in mourning and we're going to get to the bottom of this. For Renee Good, murdered in cold blood in Minneapolis, unconscionable and very, very complicated. We're joined today by Dr. Melissa Bird, also by Jenny Gage, with tremendous credentials, and you will be very interested. But for the first 15 minutes, we're going to start with HEDY TRIPP, whom I've only known for 50 years in St. Cloud, Minnesota, with an on-the-ground report from the death zone in Minneapolis and in Minnesota as a whole. Eddie, will you please identify yourself and your groups, which are formidable, and then we will get a on-the-ground report from Minneapolis through you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sonny. I will try and get used to that.
Yes. Okay.
Heady trip from St. Cloud, Minnesota. But first, I want to show you that in the background, more than a dozen hijab-wearing Somali women that I joined yesterday in St. Cloud. They were protesting amongst a long line of several hundred people from the community. Now, St. Cloud is 70 miles from the death zone of Minneapolis. And the Somalis actually came with hot Somali tea and sambusas for protesters. Now, a quick recap. January 7th, 9:37 a.m., Renee Good, 37-year-old, white, queer, mother, wife, was murdered by ICE agent Jonathan Ross in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you can check your social media, make your own conclusions. But what Sunny was saying is it's real. What's happening? I'm going to show you another background.
Okay, remember, we're also on the radio, Eddie, so you got to
Yes,
be very descriptive.
yes. Let me see. Behind me, as I'm showing folks on the Zoom, are ICE agents who are in St. Cloud right now. That is a row of Somali businesses on 33rd Avenue. So 2,000 ICE agents have been fanning throughout the state, not just Minneapolis. They've been targeting Somalis, Latin Americans, and Asian refugees, immigrants, and citizens. Protests will continue. I first want to thank Amy Anderson for sharing the resolution on non-support of ICE that was passed by Walport, Oregon City Council. I reworded it and I sent it to the St. Cloud City Council and Mayor, and I hope it'll be acted on soon. And I encourage other cities and towns to do the same. I also sent another request to our Attorney General Keith Ellison for him to come on this program. You can imagine, though, how full his plate is, but we will keep on trying. Now, I have the privilege and honor to bring you an on-the-ground report by a Minneapolis parent to share their perspective. They asked to be anonymous for the safety of their family and families in the community. But Harvey, Sunny, and me can vouch for their authenticity. So, Minneapolis parent, the mic is now yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Hetty. Thanks, Shelly, for having me on and just getting another Minneapolis voice out there to the people. Can you hear me okay? Am I
Yes, you're
good here?
great. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know where to start.
Start with your
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah, so I'm in South Minneapolis. I'm not too far away from where Renee was murdered the other day.
Also,
Um,
where George Floyd was murdered.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm in a community that still is feeling that trauma. We're dealing with the same mayor that was here during that time, who was not very good at listening to what people have wanted. And people still don't feel heard from that. There's still a lack of trust within that portion of our city government. Yeah, and we're in the same zone now dealing with a crisis that's, I think, even worse than what we've experienced in the pandemic and in the uprising in 2020. Um, yeah, so I am a parent. My child goes to a Spanish bilingual school. There's, I think, five of them in the city, all networked together. So those are particularly vulnerable communities. And the schools are incredible in what they're doing and pulling together. And really, the whole city is, the community is just, I mean, there's already so many networks built already from the 2020 uprising with George Floyd, and those have just magnified, I don't know how many times, but it's a beautiful thing to see in a way, the amount of support that's out there, the amount of people that are active in being there for help or being there for chasing ice away. Um, it's definitely moving. Um, but yeah, I did want to give the perspective of where the school is coming from. Um, I mean, in particular, that shooting that occurred just 2 blocks away from one of these um, bilingual Spanish immersion schools. Um,
Renee Good had just dropped her 6-year-old son off at a school. Is that correct?
that's correct. Yep.
And one of the child's stuffed toys was essentially covered in blood.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. They were a parent in the community just doing the same thing so many of us parents are doing right now to try and protect our neighbors, just observing ICE. Um,
When you take your
mhm.
children to school, do you see ICE agents on the street?
Um, yes. Maybe it depends on the day. Um, as of the beginning of last week, the ICE presence has exploded within this area, within this corridor. It's a neighborhood with a lot of Somali residents, a lot of Latina residents, um, and it's highly being targeted by ICE. I mean, it's kind of like the central zone.
How does that occupation make you and the other residents in the area feel in your day-to-day life?
Oh, it's complete fear and dread. Yeah, many of the vulnerable families in these communities are not leaving their homes. They've been locked in their homes since before the holiday season. Um, right? They can't go to work. Their work's been raided, shut down. They have no money coming in, and now they have their children locked in their home, not going to school either, with the incidents that have been occurring at the schools. They just switched to online learning for all of Minneapolis
Mhm.
public schools. So it's an option. So you can either go in person or um, be online. Also, most of the schools aren't doing any kind of like outdoor recess or anything like that. So students aren't going to observe, a parent being tackled or pepper sprayed in the snow in front of their school.
As a
Has
parent,
that been happening? Have people been tackled and pepper sprayed by ICE in your neighborhood?
Well, going back to when Renee Good was shot, those agents then descended on that school right by that scene. They were all over the playgrounds. They were pepper spraying.
Oh,
That school had already started, so students were inside, but there were still some parents were dropping their kids off. Hasn't been confirmed yet. Maybe one of those parents had been abducted. Someone was abducted in that site at that time. We don't know if it was a parent or not. Another school down the road. I don't know if you've seen footage of Roosevelt High School, or it's another one of these bilingual schools. Definitely worth looking at what occurred on that same day at their dismissal time.
oh.
Parents, teachers tackled by ICE. You have teenage students yelling at them to stop, running away in fear. And if I remember right, I think Bovino was on scene at that one where they were tackling all the parents.
Well,
But
the one thing I did see, and I'm sure many others saw it, was an interview with Jesse Ventura, the former professional wrestler and governor. I believe he was at Roosevelt,
Yes.
and he was livid. I mean, I never expected to see that from Jesse Ventura, but
That's his old school. That's his
that's
alma
his old
mater.
school.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Well, he was quite radical and very forceful. Maybe you saw it, Hetty,
Yeah.
but people should look at Google or whatever,
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura at Roosevelt School. So how far are you from Roosevelt School?
It's in my area. Minneapolis is a pretty small city. I mean, there's a big it's not like, a big metropolis or anything. It's all within South Minneapolis. All these areas
So
are within a few miles of each other.
so these ICE agents are all over the neighborhoods and at all the schools, and they're tackling people and there's pepper spraying people.
Yep, there've been a lot of reports of schools. So the school was closed, as you probably knew, last week, Thursday and Friday. Um, and there were reports of ICE agents going there on different schools on Friday, tracking all the teachers and staff. There's
Oh,
a lot of anxiety and fear among the teachers and staff that ICE might be waiting for them as they're exiting. So right now, there's every school that I know of in the community has large patrol groups out around the whole time the school is open and closed, or I'm sorry, open until the time that staff is going home, just to protect their safety. Um,
you mean groups of civilians?
Groups of civilians in the community. It's a mixture of, it's mostly parents that attend those schools. There's massive support networks of parents for each school. A lot of it's organized by like a few teachers within the schools. And then there's all parents surrounding them where everyone knows each other and can trust each other. And then oftentimes, if there are community members in the area, they're invited to come too. They invited though to stay off the school property because we don't want anyone on there that we
Have
don't
you
know.
patrolled? Have you patrolled?
Yes, I have.
So what do you do when you patrol?
There's a lot of ways to patrol. You can be on an intersection, just standing there, seeing if any ICE vehicles are present, right? Checking for agents, for known license plates that are on ICE vehicles. Um, Also, some people are going around in vehicles, doing like perimeter runs in their area to see if they spot anything. There's people on bikes traveling around. Pretty much any way you can. People walking on foot, people stationary on foot. Everyone's connected either through walkie-talkies or through different networking apps to
Pretty,
communicate as soon as they see something.
I'm pretty
Unbelievable.
sure I know the answer to this, but how would you compare the sense of fear and insecurity before ICE came versus now?
I mean, it's just incomparable. I would say even since the start of the new year, since the 2,000 agents were sent here, and now I don't think they gave a number, but an additional hundreds of agents were just sent this week. The presence has gone from sometimes I see an agent here, I yell at them, chase them away from the area, to now I can go on just about any intersection between the hours of like 9 to 5, like major throughways within the area, and I'm probably going to spot a vehicle with 4 agents in it
Mm,
like every 25 minutes or so at least, if not more than that. A lot of times they go in these caravans of like 2 to 3 ICE
mm,
vehicles in a row, just targeting people at random. I could
mm,
tell. I've been going out to before this, I was going out to hot spots to just protect people. I was in one area in South Minneapolis, off Lake Street, where there's a very large Latino community, and just standing there for 5 or 10 minutes, just me standing there on my feet. I saw about 2 vehicles pull up to a bus stop. Streets wasn't that busy out, but 2 ICE vehicles pulled up, 4 agents came out, another vehicle came up, then 6 agents were there, and they grabbed a random person off the bus stop. They definitely, I think they were experiencing homelessness, and they just grabbed the person and shoved them in their vehicle. There's another person on scene that started running away. One ICE agent started to chase them, and then me and another person there went after that ICE agent, distracted them, screamed at them, and they gave up. That person was able to run away.
Is
Um,
there a sense among the people that are standing up for their neighbors as you are, and thank you so much for doing that, but is there a sense since this murder that you're in physical danger when you confront these ICE agents?
I mean, there's so many of them, you don't know who you're dealing with for sure. So there is some sense of risk and danger. People are being, they are aware. Most people give distance, right? No one wants further violence to occur. But yeah, there is definitely some risk, but I feel like when I'm out there doing it, there's so much support right now. The community, is becoming more and more aware every day. Every day I'm, telling 3 more neighbors about how you can plug in and get out there, scare these people off, right? When there's enough people, they leave.
Yeah.
Right? There's an
And
Well,
incident. There's an
go,
had,
incident today where I guess I'm just telling you my story from today. I was
yeah, go. Yes.
I was just working and got a call in that there were 20 to 30 agents coming out of their vehicles, not too far away from where Renee Good was murdered. Um, I biked over there as fast as I could, and by the time I got there, it had cleared out already because there were so many community members screaming at them to get out of there. A few people were pepper sprayed, but ICE gave up immediately. They dispersed and they all zoomed away on the highway out of there.
have, have you noticed a change in the reaction of the community, an intensity of activism or greater awareness since these horrendous violent incidents have been happening?
Absolutely. I mean, there's these convoys going down every street very often. Oftentimes there's already, a person in a car or nearby yelling at them, letting the whole community know like this is happening right now. Look in these windows, right? There's all these masked people. They've got a detained person here. Um, and I just feel like it is exploding, the activism within here, the awareness of it, and people willing to get out there and help, right? People that I know have like almost zero activist experience. I tell them about what's going on, what I'm doing, and get them plugged into their neighborhood. And the next day, that person was out there witnessing an abduction, going over, talking to the mother and child that were left there, getting their information, making sure they had the resources to an attorney and to where, their spouse was just taken, most likely. People
Well, let me
are
ask
alerting and getting right in there and helping. Yeah.
Melissa Byrd. Melissa Byrd is a candidate for Congress in Oregon? Melissa, is this kind of thing happening in Corvallis and around the state of Oregon as well?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Melissa Byrd. I'm a descendant of the Shivwitz Band of Southern Paiutes from what is now known as Utah and Arizona. I'm running for Congress in Oregon's 4th Congressional District Democratic primary. And most of this area is actually, so we have Corvallis and Eugene are the major cities, but we also have the entire coast of Oregon from the border of California up to the top of Lincoln County. So we are South Coast and Mid Coast. And what is happening here, we definitely have ICE agents here in Corvallis and also in Eugene. But the large thing that's happened is that they have recently targeted the town of Newport, the city of Newport, on the coast of Oregon, which is a huge tourist. It's where our major fishery is and also a huge tourist town. And so what is happening is that they were putting out feelers to build an ice facility in Newport. So the thing that triggered the whole thing is they removed the Coast Guard's helicopter, which is in the city of Newport, in case the fishing vessels go down. And my husband works in the fishery, so that helicopter's being located there is the difference between life and death when a boat goes down. And what triggered everybody's knowledge of the ice facility there was that two things happened at the same time. They moved the Coast Guard helicopter south to North Bend, which is just outside of Coos Bay. But they also started inquiring with the city about getting permits to build sewer infrastructure for up to 10,000 gallons of human waste a day. So I'd like you to just think about how much waste that is. So the number of people they were planning on detaining at that Coast Guard facility is gigantic. And what happened is that all of us came out in absolute opposition of ICE building a facility in Newport, which also, so it's not just the city of Waldport that came out in opposition of ICE. The reason the town of Waldport, which is just south of Newport, very, very tiny community, the reason the city council of Waldport came out with a statement, HEDY, that you mentioned earlier in this conversation, was because they were going to try and house ICE agents in the town of Waldport and then build this huge ICE facility in Newport. So the city council of Newport also has issued an absolute no ICE in our community, unanimous decision. And then fortunately here in Oregon, our attorney general has been, suing so that we don't get ICE in any of these communities. Another thing of concern is that the Border Patrol in Coos Bay has been trying to hire in Coos Bay, which is also on the coast, another port town. And so another big concern, of course, is that they are trying to increase Border Patrol presence on the coast of Oregon in general. And so, and I just want to alert everyone also to bring it back just a little bit to Minnesota before I get back to Oregon. I did put a link to an article from Indian Country News that talks about the 5 Native Americans who've been detained by ICE in Minneapolis. And they are now targeting, there is an urban area in Minneapolis. One of my Native activist friends pointed out today that it's like seeing Chinatown in another major city, that this area in Minneapolis is an indigenous community that started in 1975 because of the movement by the federal government to pull people off reservation and push them into urban areas as a form of colonization and genocide. And those folks are being targeted by ICE as well. And so it's not just happening in general neighborhoods. They're really targeting the Native American community. And we've seen this actually in Tacoma. ICE, what is happening with ICE has never been about immigration. It has always been about brown bodies. And I think it's really important for us to remember that this is not new. What ICE is doing has been practiced for 500 years. What they are doing is taking a tried and true action of disappearing people, splitting mothers from their children, and moving men into these concentration camps. We're calling them concentration camps. We used to call them forts. And so all of the forts that are across the United States of America are actually used to be detention centers for Native people. And so I think it's really important for us as we are talking about ICE and talking about fighting ICE and the rising tide of fascism. This is why I'm running for Congress. We currently have a congressional, our sitting congresswoman is not a fighter. She is not someone who is pushing back against what's happening. And we need fighters in Congress who understand this legacy of colonization and genocide. It's just under a different name. We're just calling it ICE. And I think as we are fighting for all of our neighbors, for all of our family members, for all of the people that make our communities strong and beautiful and vibrant, we need to be electing people in office who actually give a shit about what is happening in this country. Yeah,
Okay.
I sure do have a webpage. I'll put it in the chat.
Yes, put your webpage in the chat, please. We have 100 people on the line here. And Melissa, Dr. Bird, thank you for that. It does come down to semantics. I have no trouble referring to ICE as a Gestapo.
Yeah.
It was J.D. Vance who said that Donald Trump would be America's Hitler. And so, this is not about immigration, as you point out. The immigrants in America are are Trump's Jews. Trump is to the immigrants what Hitler was to the Jews. And anybody that thinks, does, as you point out, Melissa, very important information, they are building concentration camps. I was at Dachau in 1967. I don't think there's a hell of a lot of difference between Dachau and Alligator or Alcatraz or whatever they
Well,
want.
and let me point out that Hitler used the United States reservation system as the model for what he did in Nazi Germany. So
Absolutely, that's
he
correct.
actually he thought it was the best thing ever to take the model that the United States used to on Native American people and used it as the model for building concentration camps, and the
Right,
entire Holocaust was built on what we did to Native people here in
right.
my great great grandmother and my great great grandfather. My great grandmother was sold into slavery when she was 8 years old.
Oh my
So
God.
this model has been used for generations of people. And that's
Right.
why I'm running for Congress, because if
Okay.
we don't have people in office who know how to fight fascism, it is going to be deeply troubling for the rest of us in this country. And that's what we're seeing in Minnesota
Well,
is
Hetty, let's get back to your person on the street. Melissa, Hetty, can you go back to your reporter? I know that he's got to go take his kids to school, and then we'll go back to Melissa. And if Jenny Gage is on, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Hetty. Oh, you're muted.
Um,
Yes.
I wanted to ask my parent if they had anything more to add, because remember, I'm in St. Cloud and they are in Minneapolis.
So
Um,
that's a pretty terrifying piece of reportage you've given there. I mean, oh
Yeah.
my,
yeah, I can tell you as we've been talking here, I see now that ICE is going into a lot of businesses in the area, some agents undercover, trying to intimidate employees, people inside. This is developing as I'm sitting here speaking with you. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. But not so much targeting just people, but just going into uh,
Intimidation, huh?
intimidation in businesses that are in communities, businesses with that are allies in the LGBTQ plus community. I'm not sure what they're doing in there, but there's been a lot of call for help in those businesses today. Some of them are shutting down early tonight because of what's
oh my
going
God.
on. So I'm
Well,
wondering. Yeah.
with Donald Trump and ICE, every night is Kristallnacht.
Yep. Yep.
And this has absolutely nothing to do with immigration.
No, there's absolutely
Donald
nothing
Trump's
to do with
mother was an
immigration.
immigrant. His grandparents were immigrants. Two of his three wives were immigrants. There's nothing to do with immigration.
Yep.
It's all about intimidation. And with the killing of Renee Good, they're showing that not only they can pull gun on people, but they can shoot them and kill them right there and
Yep.
deny them medical care.
Absolutely. And in terms of helping out in Minneapolis, I'm going to drop a Linktree link in the chat again. That these are all vetted mutual aid. Um, you can donate to that. There's a big section on rent assistance, which is of huge need right now with so many families stuck at home, not being able to work. We are making a push for the state to put a freeze on rent. I don't know if they're actually going to do it, but it's definitely a good place to look. These are all excellent organizations to
Yeah, I agree.
to help. And the more help, the better. I mean, we are getting a lot of help already. We are getting some people some money to pay their rent and such, but the more the better, because this appears to be getting worse before it's going to get better.
Unbelievable. Well, it's
Yeah.
incredibly great that the community has rallied. Imagine if the people of Germany had rallied against Hitler like this.
Yeah.
I mean, we have no illusions there. Now, there's no, the primary difference between Trump and Hitler, as far as I'm concerned, is that Hitler spoke better German. That's about it. Um, but so, anything more from the street there in Minneapolis? And we'll go back to Melissa Bird, but first, Mike Hirsch has a hand.
Yeah,
That's
oh,
all
go
I had
ahead.
to report right now. But thank you so much for having me here to give a voice to what's going on, and yep, save a spot in your heart for all these
Well, you're very
families
brave.
here. Yep.
I have to say, I can't say this without crying, but Renee Good was the same age as my twin daughters.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yep.
can see it. And there's absolutely no doubt that she was murdered. And, they denied her medical care, which is
Yep.
not being discussed. And now we're looking into the history of this guy. And we'll see. We'll know more. But
Yep.
But what is more devious is that the narrative coming from the leadership of the U.S. accused her of being a domestic terrorist.
Yep.
So, if right-thinking people can analyze that situation, it's very obvious where ICE and the government is coming from. But
Right.
if you look at the background here in my slide, the Somali community here is really, really ferociously protesting against ICE, and they have the community with them. Thank you.
thank you so much, Hedy, for setting this up. Stay with us, please, Hedy. I was just counting back. You and I met in 1975 on a boat in Indonesia. So this is our 50th year.
Yep.
Mike Hirsch, and then we'll go back to Dr. Bird. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to stress that the GREEP Zooms and the GREEP project is non-profit, not nonpartisan. We've heard from Greens, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. We do not endorse candidates. However, Progressive Democrats of America does, and Dr. Bird has won the endorsement from the Oregon PDA chapter, and the national endorsement is pending. But as you can see, as everybody has been able to hear, Melissa Bird is a real champion. She's highly ethical. She's willing to roll up her sleeves and fight for people who need fighting for. And unfortunately, the incumbent, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, has, you know, I call her halfway Hoyle because she's halfway between Trump and halfway between the Democrats. She's got one foot in the Progressive Caucus and one foot in rabble rousing against undocumented immigrants. And she voted for the horrible bill that basically accuses all immigrants of being guilty until proven innocent, and we can't put up with that.
Right.
So, Dr. Bird, if you'd like to elaborate a little bit on your agenda and what you would do when elected to Congress, what your priorities would be, that would be great.
And if Jenny Gage, if you're on the line, please raise your hand so we can put you in touch with Dr. Bird. Go ahead, Dr. Bird, please.
So thank you so much for this opportunity. Also, I noticed Donald Smith put a question in the chat. It's the Lake and Riley Act. Val Hoyle, when it was first initiated, voted in favor of the Lake and Riley Act. Yeah, she switched her vote to oppose it, but that was because of pressure from her constituents. So she initially voted in favor of it. And had we not paid attention, I'm assuming she would have continued to vote all the way through for it. So one of my very first commitments when I first started running for Congress, I had an organization called Citizens Impeachment reach out to me. They are an organization that is working with folks who are running in Democratic primaries who Oh, you put it up. Thanks. Folks who are running in Democratic primaries who are pushing back against Democrats who aren't pushing hard enough. And we are a group of 70 people running for office who are committed to the very first day in introducing impeachment articles against the president, the vice president, Kristi Noem, and the Speaker of the House. And so we are committed to doing that until we are successful in those impeachment proceedings. We are also, I will note that my opponent also voted to table impeachment, articles of impeachment, when they came up last year against the president. My opponent voted to table those articles, and her justification is that they would have gone nowhere. And so that was also a vote that I would not have made. One of the things that's really important about this congressional race in particular is that because of our rural nature, one of the things that is happening is that, you know, our immigrants are the lifeblood of our communities, particularly in the spaces where we have a lot of tourism. And you know, they're business owners in these small communities. They are the folks who work in the hotels and in our restaurants, and they are the lifeblood of our community. And the idea that ICE is spreading out through Oregon, you know, I think one of the things that's fascinating about Oregon politics is we were founded as a whites-only state. We are actually a deeply racist state that has been gerrymandered to the left. So we look Democratic on our face, but actually Oregon is a deeply conservative, racist place. And I will add that we are where the Proud Boys come from. So the Proud Boys started in Portland, Oregon, and have spread out from Oregon. And so I think people really need to understand that when we are talking about politics in Oregon, one of the things that we are talking about is ensuring that we have congressional leaders who are not going to toe the party line. And I'm deeply honored that the Progressive Democrats of America Oregon chapter endorsed me, because I truly believe that if we get people like me, you know, I'm a member of the LGBT community, I'm Native American, my husband is a disabled veteran. I'm a social worker who has done advocacy not just in child welfare, but also about healthcare for all and about reproductive justice. And I think we need people in Congress who are going to raise the level of conversation publicly so that we are having, you know, these robust debates about what is happening in this country. And I think that we need to be supporting people who are running for office against elected officials who aren't willing to raise this level of debate. And I have been traveling this entire district, especially in the rural areas, and connecting with voters who are tired of everything that is happening in the district, and they want someone who's going to represent them.
Well, let me introduce you to three great people. There are tons of great people on this call. Ray McClendon, and these are people you should know. Ray McClendon, a tremendous organizer, Communities United in Atlanta, has had a huge impact and will continue. And Ray will call on you in a minute. Rob Call is a great editor who runs a very, very important website. And we also have now Jenny. Jenny, will you join us, please? Jenny is a tremendously important activist who has come out of the Maga movement and has a very large following online. Jennie Gage, can you come in with us, please? I don't see you.
Hi, sorry, my
Okay. Jennie
camera
Gage,
just
meet
died. Hi.
Dr. Bird. Also, you should know Ray McClendon and Rob Call and so many other people. We have over 100 people on the call now. Jenny, do you want to say a few words about what's happening in the MAGA community and how your MAGA contacts have been reacting to this murder in Minneapolis?
Yeah, and buckle up because I don't think anyone's going to like what I have to say. First of all, Dr. Bird, it's been so great listening to you. So nice to meet you. I spent a lot of my life in Oregon too, so I can attest to that. My German ancestors who first settled in Oregon were white supremacists, incredibly racist until the day that they died. So I'm an Arizona girl now, but thank you so much for all of your insight. Wonderful to listen to. Right before I hopped on here, I was on the phone with my bestie, who I love, respect as a human being. She's amazing. She is also MAGA. She's Mormon. She lives in Park City, Utah.
Hey, that's where
And
I'm from.
there you go. Beautiful. And so I just threw out there something about, she just asked what I was doing with my day. And I kind of told her my podcast schedule for the day. And not everything that I'm talking about is to politics today. So I mentioned it's actually nice to have a little bit of a break today for this one recording that I'm doing, because I'm so tired of talking about how much I hate President Trump. And my bestie said, "Ooh, what? Jenny, I didn't know that you actually hated President Trump." And she told me all the reasons why she loves him right now.
Oh,
She said
God.
she's so proud to see a president for the first time in her life, and she's a little bit younger than me, I'm almost 52, stand up and take control of our country. And she said he has the biggest balls of any president that we've ever had in our lifetime. So of course, I had to jump into that conversation with the lack of compassion, the cruelty, the breaking of laws and international agreements and treaties all across the board. And she said, yes, but for the world that we're living in right now, with the threat from Russia, with the threat from China, with all of the despicable stuff that Venezuela has been doing, we need this man. We need this guy who's, Wild West with the guns a slinging, who's going to come in and have the shoot down at the OK Corral type of thing. So that is 100% what I'm hearing from all of my MAGA friends across the board. They are energized, they are excited, they are completely on board with everything that President Trump is doing. All of them have completely just ripped Renee Good apart. They are saying how horrible her wife Rebecca was and what crazy lunatics these people are. I have a phone full of comments that I've been screenshotting for a video from some of the MAGA groups that I still belong to. And the interesting thing about these MAGA groups that I still belong to, I've been out of MAGA for 2 years, because they think that it's just a MAGA exclusive group, some of these groups in Facebook and Reddit, and that nobody else is going to be in there. They speak a lot more freely even than they do publicly on social media and, just out there in the wild. So a lot of the MAGA groups that I'm reading the comments of are so despicable that I don't think I can even post them on any of my platforms without violating community guidelines. But I mean, just despicable stuff that these women are animals, they're sinners, they're disgusting. And, that's what we do with people like that. So I am hearing absolutely no remorse from any of my MAGA friends. And there are some phrases that I'm seeing across the board in all of the different groups. I don't know if somebody started this and these are popular, but like God bless MAGA instead of God bless America, with little flag emojis after that, is all over the groups since the Renee Good tragedy. What else? Long live President Trump, obviously, is posted all over the place. So,
Oh my God. Nightmare. What a nightmare.
and I'm the crazy person. I'm the crazy person in these conversations.
Well, I hate to hear that, but it is the real. MYLA RESON, did you want to say something, please?
Well, I have a question for Dr. Bird. I was just looking at your website, and I see under issues that you highlight the environment and the climate. But I don't see your opinion. I know there are no nuclear power plants operating in Oregon at this time. But I am wondering what your position is with respect to a lot of people claim that do you have a position on nuclear power, even though there are no nuclear power plants in Oregon?
I think it's horrifying. So I actually went on exchange to Russia in high school right after Chernobyl.
Oh my God.
And some of the students that we did our exchange with had been in Pripyat.
Oh.
So I'm absolutely opposed to nuclear power. And interestingly enough, they're building they're building a supercomputer at Oregon State University that they are talking about powering with nuclear power.
Well, of course, Oregon has tremendous
yeah.
wind resources.
So I and I grew up in Utah, and I grew up with the Matheson. My aunt was actually Governor Matheson's secretary. And
Oh
so
my
the
God.
Matheson family very much was impacted by the fallout from the nuclear testing and was key in helping get funding for the families who were victims of that horrible fallout of the cancers and everything that happened. So I'm happy to explicitly put something on there, but you know, when you start doing all of this, and you'd be amazed at how many people are like, why didn't you say this? And why didn't you say this? Like, you know,
Right,
my
right.
issues page is very long, but I welcome the question. And I think it's really important to remember, you know, I've had several conversations with people wondering how all of a sudden we're messaging nuclear power as the green energy. I mean, it just is going to
A lie.
the
It's a
water.
horrible lie.
We do not have enough water. We do not have enough safety, you know, in place. Like, no, I'm adamantly opposed to that. And I'm adamantly opposed to anything that has to do, you know, when I lived in Salt Lake City, we had the largest, outside of Tooele, Utah, we had the largest dump of nuclear armaments in the world. We were taking Italy's nuclear arms and burying them in the desert in Utah. Like,
Right. Well,
that's a hard no for me.
Oregon is the safe site of a great anti-nuclear victory. We shut the Trojan nuclear plant, and it was totally the anti-nuclear movement that did it. And we want Oregon to be, you know, on tremendous wind resources and solar, and it's much cheaper, safer, cleaner, and faster to build. Thank you for raising that, Myla. We appreciate that. I want to make sure we get Ray McClendon in here, Melissa and Jenny, both of you, and everybody, along with Rob Call, should know Ray McClendon is one of the great organizers in Georgia, home of the Vogtle nuclear plant, which is bankrupting the state as we speak. Ray, do you want to just say hi, please, to Melissa?
Yeah, I just want to say hello. Don't really have anything to report today. Just glad to be with you. And as I was listening to Ms. Gage, it is absolutely stunning and terrifying, and it really shows how much work we have to do. If they are energized, we have got to be even more energized going into the various primaries and into the November elections. That's going to be our last opportunity to make a stand. If we don't make a stand in 2026, in the various races around the country, then there probably will not be another set of elections after this.
Absolutely right.
Can I read
what's
sorry.
that?
Can I read one of the comments from
Yeah.
one of these groups really quick? Renee Good is at fault. People like her are the enemies of the state. And this was just yesterday. She's insane. She lost custody for two children for burning them with cigarettes. That's a rumor that's going around that has been refuted. She should have obeyed the law. She was aggressive and unhinged. ICE agents and President Trump are the good people. You all who are against them are the demons of society. And I know this type of mindset and worldview like the back of my hand. I was white supremacist, Christian nationalist, Mormon, trad wife. I keep here next to my, here in my studio. This is a little Dixie flag of South Carolina that I purchased after a church shooting so that I could identify myself as one of the white supremacists in the town. I bought this from a store that was owned by one of the Grand Wizards of the Klan, who I personally knew. We were friends with all of the KKK people. So I know firsthand this mentality, the hatred, and it reminds me so much of my research. Obviously, you guys know this probably better than I do, of pre-World War I and the propagandizing that happened, and specifically some of the print propaganda that showcased the Jewish people of Germany in horrific, with like lice crawling out of their hair and big noses and snot running out of their nostrils and just dirty and looking like vagrants. The propaganda worked effectively on German people who, prior to that time, had no hatred for the Jews, to the point that they dehumanized them and led to aggression against them and all the things that culminated in the Holocaust. And the dehumanization of the liberals and leftists and Democrats that we're seeing propagandized in places like Fox News and other organizations is effective right now. It is working. It's working on people that I know. It's working on some of my own children, my grown children. So I don't think that anyone understands what a threat the followers of Donald Trump are right now today.
I want to call on Rob Call. Rob, you should know all these wonderful people, and we have over 100 folks on the call. Rob has a very powerful website. Can you tell us about it, Rob, and introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. I publish opednews.com. We've published over 100,000 progressive articles, and
Including some of mine.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. And
So,
we're always
Jenny,
happy to.
Melissa, Rob, Ray, everybody, Hetty, please put your link in the chat, please. Rob's been at it for a long time.
The one thing I wanted to say was that we need to coordinate our message in response to this. That's something that everybody across the country should be doing, and we don't have that, I don't think. So, I was on earlier this last year with you and talked about this project I'm working on to bring together the progressive ecosystem, and it's making some good progress. We're excited about it. One thing that needs to happen with the progressive ecosystem is we need to have a way to coordinate our messaging, get the strongest message, the most effective one that's going to reach the most people, and have that. And I don't think that's existing yet. We need it.
Well, let's create it. I'm assuming there's going to be another No King's Day march coming up at some point, and that'll be a major. I'm sure we'll have more than 10 million people out. We had 7 last time. They say the tipping point is 3.5%, which in a country of 340 million would be maybe 12, 14 million people. But with your website and connections, we need to do that. I know Ray has been extremely effective, not only in Georgia but nationwide. And Jenny has a tremendous website. So this kind of thing we really need. Lynn Feinerman is also, I'll call her in a minute, has a radio show. Okay, Rob, thank you. Please put your website in the chat. Please keep running our stuff. Been writing with Carl Grossman, and we're sending you the stuff. So I coordinate with freepress.org, which Steve Caruso, our engineer, helps to run. Let's call on Steve, and then we'll go to Heidi and Lynn. Go ahead, Steve Caruso, our engineer.
Yeah, the treason that this government has prevailed upon the people, which they gain their power from the people. This is not the people's power. This is treason. It's against the Constitution. And who's complicit? The judiciary, the Congress, and who else? Trump, obviously the executive branch, they're all not following the law. They're not being held to account. It's all obvious, but we need to make that plain, put it in their face, and they will be held accountable by the people.
Well, let's hope
Regardless,
so.
the people of the world, the people of this country, the people in the future. Yes, there's going to be a future. There will be a future, and things will change. Thank you.
Excellent, Steve. Thank you. And I want to point out that the Democrats, for what they're worth, are just 3-4 seats away from taking the speakership of the House. And, it's a close call already. I don't know what's going to happen with Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. Maybe you want to make a prediction, Ray McClendon? What's going to happen with that seat? Are you still with us, Ray? Maybe not. Let me go to Lynn Feinerman. She has a radio show. Then we'll go to Heidi and Erica. Lynn Feinerman, let me get you unmuted. We have 102 people. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to go back and ask a question of Melissa Byrd. I wonder if your vote regarding the immigrants and immigration related to the fact that you are Native American and that you wanted some kind of to prepare some kind of ground to classify pretty much everybody as immigrants in this nation, except for the Native American people.
Well, that vote was my opponent. That's not me. I'm not in Congress yet.
Oh,
So
so
Uh-huh.
she's highlighting the bad vote of the person she's
yeah,
trying to unseat.
yeah, I was highlighting the bad vote on that Representative Hoyle made on Lincoln Riley.
Okay.
Don't
My
you find it amazing that the MAGA movement hates immigrants and indigenous people? I
No,
mean,
I don't
that's
find it
rare.
amazing at all. I find it pretty
Yeah.
typical, actually. I mean, that
Yeah, it's
doesn't
very
surprise me in the
typical.
least. I think it's very typical. And I think I think what this whole conversation is highlighting is that as we move forward in the progressive movement, in order for us to understand how this is happening, there are some incredible indigenous authors. One who comes to mind is Ned Blackhawk, who wrote The Rediscovery of America, the Native American History of the United States. He's a scholar out of Yale. Um, he is an he has written one of the most profound histories of this country. And we have to read authors like I learned so much from that book, and I like to think I know a lot. And so it actually is this is how we treat Black and brown people in this country. A country that is founded on slavery and genocide is a country whose literal founding documents. I mean, when I wear my Merciless Indian Savages t-shirt, I'm literally quoting the Declaration of Independence. And I think that the more we talk to our friends and our neighbors and help them understand that, I'll put the name of the book in the chat, I promise.
Yeah, please.
After I'm done answering this question. But I think more importantly, Lynn, to what you were asking me is that there are over 570 treaties that we have not honored in the United States of America with 570 different tribes in this country. And those treaties need to be honored. And I'm not saying I'm going to walk into Congress on day one and I'm under any illusion that I'm going to just go in there with hellfire and brimstone and change the world. But I do think having people in Congress who are willing to elevate these conversations so that people start to think about, oh, what could we be doing in our own communities to change the tide in our own communities? That's what really prioritizes the way I lead. We need community-based people who are going to listen to people in their towns and in their cities and ask them what they need so that we can make that happen. While at the meantime, we are pushing back against the fascist dictatorship that is rising in this country.
Good for you. Very well spoken. Ray McClendon in Georgia, speaking of which, what is going to happen with Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat? Can you make a prediction on that?
No, it's too early to tell. The race is being set up for I believe it's in February with a potential runoff in March. But that's a ruby red congressional district that she's in, so it's highly unlikely that anything is going to flip, especially for this special election that has been set. Any change would likely be the race in November for the next full 2-year term.
And what is ICE in Georgia?
Interestingly, very little activity in Georgia, as has been pointed out by Mayor Fry in Minneapolis. I thought it was a very profound statement that this is politically targeted. So they're going after states with Democratic governors and mayors. Since we have a Republican governor here in Georgia, they are less likely to come into Georgia, just as they are not in Florida or Texas. So that's the only thing that's saving the metro cities like Atlanta and Savannah and others right now in Georgia. That's subject to change, but that's another indication that this is nothing but politics of intimidation.
And Sonny, we've got a bunch of people who are really eager to ask questions.
Yes, and also we've just been joined, I believe, by Steve Donziger. We're going to talk about Venezuela, but let this go again. And Jenny Gage, it's great to have you with us. I hope you and Melissa and Hetty and Ray will all connect because and also Rob Call. These are important connections, and everybody, please make sure to put your contacts in the chat, okay? And we're going to go another hour here. We're going to get into Venezuela, but first, Heidi and then Erica, please. Heidi,
Yeah.
Vertonghen.
Yes, I'm sorry, I've got it
Go
bad.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But I wanted to say that when I was in Seattle, I was in a K through 12 alternative magnet school, and we were blessed to have had like my homeroom teachers were a HEDY teacher and also a person from the Japanese internment camp. So I learned at a young age in 6th grade about this stuff. And my 6th grade, I took a class on the Holocaust from somebody who's a survivor of the Holocaust. And I was very shocked when I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C. when I was there for the progressive well, anyway, it was the PCCC inaugural campaign candidacy, and I saw in that first exhibit that the person that of Hitler, that what I was hearing Hitler say in that first exhibit in the National Holocaust Museum was so akin to what I was seeing Trump saying.
Absolutely. And
I think that I've said as such on Facebook to friends of mine, and people were unfriended me because I said that he was like Trump. And
well, Trump had next to according to his first wife, Trump kept a book of Hitler's speeches on his night table and would practice speaking like Hitler in front of a mirror and mimicking Hitler's style. So a good point for that, Heidi. Thank you for bringing it. And as I mentioned, I went to Dachau in 1967, and it was not a pretty picture. A couple of my kids have been to Auschwitz. Thank you, Heidi. Erica Johnke, and
Hi.
go ahead.
I have a question for Melissa Bird. Obviously, the rise of fascism affects everyone, but I also would like to know what kind of plans she would have for Oregonians with disabilities if she got elected.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you so much for asking. I was going to say that before I have to go to another meeting, but I live with my husband is a disabled veteran, and disability advocacy is I learned it from my best friend who's been my friend for 51 years. Her mother became paralyzed in 1981 when we were 6 years old, and Susan actually fought for the ADA and taught me how to be an activist from the time I was little. And so disability advocacy is primary for me. There are a couple of things in particular I'm deeply concerned about, particularly as we're looking at how they're cutting the Department of Education funding for special education. I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm also deeply concerned about what we are doing with all of these cuts to the ACA and us, just devouring the ACA, what that's going to mean for our elders and our folks who are aging. And I'm very concerned about folks with disabilities and how they are going to be able to access housing and care. as the economy continues to crumble upon itself. So people with disabilities are a high priority for me. And Erica, if you have ideas or suggestions about what is needed, I would love you to email me because I do have friends that work in the disability advocacy space, but I'm always wanting to hear from more folks. I think it's really, really a priority. When I was teaching social justice advocacy and policy to social work students, disability rights was always the last thing. It was like veterans and disabled people were always the last thing on the syllabus, like the model syllabus. And I always moved it to the top because those are the things that are a high priority for me in my life. And disability rights affect everybody, not just people with disabilities. And so I'm happy to be a voice on that and also raise my voice for that. I also have to go to another meeting. So if anybody else wants to talk with me, I put my email in the chat, but you can find me online at melissabirdforcongress.com. I'm very, very invested in talking with folks in the community. You know, I'm an old school advocate and activist and social worker. And so it is really important for me. Yes, Erica, I would love to talk to the disability team. That would be amazing. So please feel free to reach out to me anytime. It's Melissa at melissabirdforcongress.com, and I put it in the chat. And thank you for having me today. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this discussion. I think just all of these conversations are so important, and I look forward to connecting with all of you moving forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
Melissa,
much for being with us. And
Melissa,
Jenny Gage, Jenny
Melissa,
Gage, I know you may have to leave soon also. Go ahead.
Yes, Mike.
I just wanted to say, Melissa, you're an absolute rock star. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. You're so inspiring. We'd love to have you back on this Zoom, and we'll get you in touch with the disabilities issue team.
Yes, please.
The more the merrier. We got to get your name out there. I see that you're going to be on the excellent show with Lynn. So we're getting your name out there. The more people hear from you, the more they're going to like you, the more they'll support you, and the better off we'll all be. So thank you again so much.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you to everybody. Have a super great afternoon. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And Jenny Gage, I know you may have to leave. You're always so busy. It's been great having you on. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks. We will not meet next week. It's Martin Luther King Day, and we want people out in the streets. But we will meet again in 2 weeks.
And Sonny, by the way, we are joined by Stephen Donziger.
Oh, good. Okay, he got it. Okay, Jenny Gage.
Hey, Harvey. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, I just had a quick question for Jenny before she.
Please.
No, this is Nina in Florida, of course.
Hi, Nina.
I'm on the legal observer team here in Palm Beach County in Florida. We're not too heavy on the ice, thank goodness, for the border police and the highway police. We've been chasing them down. Kids are afraid to go to school. I even have friends, husbands, people are afraid to go to work, number 2. Number 3, it's been on my mind. I've been in touch with the media on TV about this too, regarding the MAGA folks and their feelings on this. I just want to know what your comments are and what they're saying. These videos that we watched with our own eyes, God bless her. She's not what did they call her?
Well, it doesn't matter what they call her.
Anyways, what are they seeing in the videos that we're not seeing? I don't understand. I'm really confused about this. I know it's a silly thing, but the MAGA movement.
It's not silly. How do we change MAGA's mind, Jenny? How do we get to MAGA?
That's my question.
I mean, that's what I work on every single day.
Thanks.
What they're seeing in the video, what they're looking for is sin. Most MAGA people are Christian nationalists. All of my MAGA friends, 100%, are a certain type of Christians, right? And they don't care about lawlessness. They care about sin. So what they see right off the bat is 2 lesbian women. They see 2 wives, and they want to just, heap all kinds of hate on her because already she's breaking God's command by being married to another woman. So there's a lot of hate just about the fact that she's a lesbian. They've already been radicalized to hate Democrats, to hate liberals, to think that we are literally destroying the nuclear family and peace and happiness and everything that America is. So they see bad people doing bad things, and they think that the ICE agent is protecting all that is good, all that is of God, all that is righteous and wholesome. And these are real life conversations that I'm having with friends and family right now. ICE is protecting everything that is good in America.
Oh,
and that agent was protecting all of us from these crazy liberal, but they think the same thing about me, by the way. So most of my family has cut me off, and my friends think I'm a wackadoodle.
Well, we're happy to
By the way,
welcome you
we're joined
into
by
our
Steve
family.
Donziger. Steve
Thank
Donziger
you.
is online. Let me get this HEDY TRIPP to jump in here with Jenny. Go ahead, HEDY.
Very quickly, Jenny,
Hi,
I'm
Hetty.
just afraid of your safety, and maybe you can speak to that. But I wanted to address what Ray said. Now, remember, Minnesota Democratic governor, he had the audacity to challenge the vice president seat, remember? He is not seeking re-election because of all the issues here. The lieutenant governor, Peggy Flanagan, is a member of the White Earth Band, or Ojibwe. I'm hoping she'll become governor. We have an attorney general who's a Muslim Democrat. And the 45th seems to be obsessed by the Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is Somali Muslim. Now, another point was I had a very tense conversation with a former St. Cloud City Council member who claimed that the First Nation people were immigrants as they came over the Bering Straits. So use critical thinking when we see things, when we hear things. That is really important. So Jenny, if you can just I'm concerned for your safety.
I get death threats all the time. I reported 2 to the FBI last week. In the Book of Mormon, which was my scriptures for 44 years of my life, they do indeed come across from Jerusalem, the Native Americans, on a ship. So I believed that. They were immigrants too. And I didn't give, am I allowed to cuss on this show, or should I use adult
No,
language?
because Steve's got to cut it out.
No.
No, I
Sorry.
didn't give one rat's ass about the natives, because this was God's country that he had given to us. So the phrase promised land is really big. It's at the center of Christian nationalism. I believed that America was God's promised land. And I think that a better phrase than Christian nationalism is American Zionism, because I believed that Heavenly Father had led us here so that we could establish America, and that he wanted the Native Americans out. That was God's plan. So Christian Zionism has absolutely no respect for indigeneity, zero, none. They are basing their whole entire worldview on made up lies from crazy people, which they believe are scripture. Like, I read this to my kids. My parents read this to me. My grandparents read this to them. This stuff was reality to me. It was more real to me than any science, any book that I could read written by somebody that wasn't Joseph Smith. So yeah, Christian Zionism, American Zionism, it will destroy our country.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think we've got Steve Donziger on with us. Steve, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so
you
Steve
can turn your
Donziger.
camera on if you could, please.
Yeah, Steve, we'd like to see. Jenny, it's been great having you with us.
Thank
And
you so
do you have
much.
anything further to add? We're going to jump into Venezuela in a
I'm
minute
just
here.
so glad you guys talk about all this stuff. Thanks for having me on. And if anyone would like to
All right, come
email
back in
me,
2 weeks.
sounds good.
We will not
I'm
be here
getting-
next week. We're going to honor Martin Luther King. But in 2 weeks, Jenny, what you offer is completely unique and invaluable. And Hetty,
and
thank you.
depressing.
Well, we got to find a way to get to these people. There's got to be some way, some issue that we can rip MAGA's cold fingers from the gun of Donald Trumpism. There's somewhere in there that we can.
And Sonny, real quick, I just shared Jenny's YouTube link. I suggest everybody watch Jenny's YouTubes. They are absolutely amazing, very informative. And one of the things I wanted to ask her about, and I guess I can wait a couple weeks, is the high level of anti-feminism and misogyny in the right-wing evangelical.
God's natural order, God's hierarchy. Yeah.
That seems to be the core of the MAGA movement. With the shooting of another woman is anti-feminism. I mean, it's guys who can't handle women on top, right?
That's right. And Jenny, your one of your latest videos explained how a lot of these Trumper right-wing men seem to seek out strong, empowered women to break them, and how just horrendous and abusive that is. And I'd like to discuss that in a couple weeks with you on this Zoom if you're available.
I'd love to.
Okay, you guys.
Thank
And
you
Knowledge
so
is power.
much.
may
Thanks,
I just
everybody.
say, may I just say that we also have in the chat just now the link to this Zoom, which is being live streamed on YouTube, so you can share Stephen Donziger and have his voice go further. We're so happy to have you with us, Steve. And so please like and share the link to this this program on YouTube right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. We'll be back with you in 2 weeks. And Rob Call as well. Thank you, Rob, so much for being with us, and Ray McClendon. We got to talk with us as well, but we're going to go to Steve Donziger. Donald and Nicole, if you can hold, I think you'll find Steve Donziger, and his time is always limited. So, Steve, will you give us? You have been assaulted by Chevron. And Chevron is now obviously at the core of this assault at Venezuela. Can you give us a perspective of what's really going on here with the oil companies and this attack on Venezuela?
Sure. It's good to be here, Harvey, and everyone.
And let me say very quickly, Steve Donziger has been is the only guy in American history who has been prosecuted directly through the legal system by a corporation. And they've taken his law license and subjected him to God knows how many years of incredibly unique repression and oppression. But Steve's great sin was going down to South America and working with the indigenous to save their land from oil destruction. And Chevron is at the point of that spear. So and Steve is a genuine global hero. It was really an honor to have you on, Steve. So tell us what's happening really in Venezuela.
Thank you, Harvey. Always a pleasure to be with you and everybody on the call. Many of you have supported me over the years. Just in a quick nutshell, for people who don't know the story, so you know a little bit about who I am. I'm a human rights lawyer. I represented indigenous and farmer communities in the Ecuadorian Amazon for many years. We won a $10 billion pollution judgment against Chevron. Rather than pay the judgment, Chevron then sued me for $60 billion in New York, where I live. And over time, they convinced a judge to find me in criminal contempt of court for refusing to give them my confidential case file, which led on a misdemeanor charge to almost 3 years of detention at home detention, and 6 weeks in prison. And as Harvey said, I'm the only person ever prosecuted by a private corporation. The judge who charged you with criminal contempt of court could not convince the federal prosecutor or the SDNY to take the case. So the judge appointed a Chevron law firm to step into the shoes of the government and prosecute me in something that's never happened before or since in this country. So in a nutshell, that's my story. And the battle that the communities of Ecuador are waging against Chevron still continues. But it's interesting turning to Venezuela. Venezuela is a country where Chevron has assets, where Chevron has operated since the 1920s. Chevron got a special license from, the U.S. government, the Obama administration, Biden, Trump, to continue operating in Venezuela after many oil companies left in 2007 when the Chavez government wanted to change the deals that the foreign oil companies had in the country to make them more favorable to Venezuela. So, Chevron is, I would say, with how it operates politically around the world, is a little different. All these oil companies, generally operate on the same model. None are good, but Chevron is a little more astute, in my opinion, in terms of how it operates in political environments, challenging environments. And as a result, it seems to get away with more because it's willing to take more risk. And I think it's the fact it stayed in Venezuela when Exxon and all the other companies pulled out is evidence of that. I mean, my experience with Chevron in Ecuador over 30 years is It's a company that's willing to stop at almost nothing, including crossing the ethical line, committing, what many would regard as crimes in order to advance its agenda. It's a company that doesn't respect the rule of law, in my experience. It's a company that really sees court battles as places to just wield power, not to litigate actual claims like the claims of our clients in the Amazon of Ecuador, which we fought really hard to litigate and ended up winning the case. By the way, that case was affirmed unanimously by Ecuador Supreme Court, even though Chevron refuses to pay the judgment. So in Venezuela, the way I kind of see this, a couple of points. I mean, one is I don't think Trump, um, you know, people say it's an oil war, a war for oil. I'm not so sure that's really what's happening here. Although ostensibly he wants the oil for U.S. companies and is engaging in gangsterism masquerading as foreign policy to get it, in my opinion. The oil investment environment in Venezuela, even with the change at the top of the Maduro government, is really unattractive. After the Trump invited the oil executives into the White House the other day, the CEO of Exxon basically said Venezuela the word he used was uninvestable. And the reason for that, I mean, there's multiple factors. But one is the crude oil in Venezuela, even though it reports the world's largest oil reserves, the oil in Venezuela is like bad oil. It's thick. It's really hard to refine. It's super expensive to pull out of the ground. One analyst kind of said it had the consistency of cold peanut butter. So it's really expensive to pull oil out of Venezuela. And if you factor in, the instability created by this, abduction of Maduro, the fact that there obviously is no, rule of law system there that companies, I think, would prefer to have so they could get some sort of legal certainty about contracts. And the fact that the price of oil right now is really, really low. So, to sort of extract cold peanut butter style oil and refine it, it's really not economically feasible, particularly not in an completely unstable political environment. And, I don't think Trump ever talked to the oil companies before he went in. I think that he is just doing crazy stuff for various reasons, including distract from Epstein, produce his daily reality TV show out of the White House. Obviously, there was no plan for the day after. I think they're winging it. I think they didn't know that they would, in advance, whether they'd go with Machado or just sort of stick with Delcy Rodriguez, who's the new vice president. And I think what's interesting to me about this, as someone who's lived in Latin America for decades or traveled there and worked there, and I've seen it all. I used to live in Nicaragua during the Sandinista government as a young journalist from 1984 to 1987. And I would say the main difference between, a lot of the interventions historically, and there's been dozens and dozens, hundreds really, in the last 250 years. Like you think of Noriega in Panama in 1989 or Aristide in Haiti in 2004. The United States always tried to frame these interventions as protecting democracy and the rule of law and human rights. And now they don't even say that anymore. And, the framing is strictly transactional business. The mask is off. I mean, look, before you could sort of see the BS about what was happening, but now they themselves are taking off the mask and they don't care. And one might ask, why is this happening? And, I think in a way it's a sign of the decline of the American empire in the sense that, Trump seems to be leading a faction that, whether he knows it or not, because I don't think he's that smart, but he seems to be leading a faction that is sort of withdrawing from the global police role and coming back to this hemisphere and sort of trying to divide up the world into spheres of influence, where Putin can do his thing, China can do its thing, as long as the United States can control what goes on in this hemisphere, plus Greenland. So, I think it's interesting that we reached a point where the rules-based order, as liberals always sort of talked about since the fall of the Soviet Union, is collapsing. I mean, it's being shredded by Trump. Institutions like the UN, the ICJ, the International Criminal Court are all under attack. And it sort of might makes right. As I said, I believe it's gangsterism. I don't know where the Venezuela thing is going to go. I think Trump is so drunk on his own power right now because that abduction seemed relatively easy and it served its purpose of putting the Epstein files, on the back burner. And now he's talking about doing this in other countries, including maybe even Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, obviously. And I think we're in a very, very dangerous situation right now. And I think that the only way to really deal with this is through mass popular mobilization in Latin America, that will send a message to, the imperialists who are now running the US government that the cost of continuing this type of gangsterism is just going to be too high to carry out or be successful. If the US tries to impose regime change in Cuba, it's not going to be like it was in Venezuela. I predict it will not be that way. And
How will it be?
Well, I think the Cubans are mobilized and they're competent. And I don't think Cuba's a corrupt government. I mean, in other words, the government of Venezuela, Maduro had his support, the colectivos, some of them are out on the street now. He obviously arrested a lot of people who opposed his regime. He arrested a lot of people who protested the last election, which all observers, including, many presidents of the region, believe he lost, and that election was basically stolen. And I think all of that produced a situation where the level of popular support in Venezuela was limited. So I don't think you're going to necessarily see that in Cuba. I think Cuba is much better organized, and I think there'll be a real fight if the United States goes in. I don't think they're going to go in and be able to decapitate the president of the country or the government by taking the president out without a massive uprising. I might be wrong, but I believe it's a completely different calculation. Plus, by the way, Cuba doesn't really have oil. So, that would just be Trump engaging in adventurism because he thinks it works. It projects his own power. It allows him to, again, distract from the real issues of the day. But I think it's possible he's dumb enough to do it.
Well,
I'll stop there. That's my overall analysis.
Well, there's a couple things quickly. One of the analyses you read is that Venezuela was the economic lifeline for Cuba, and that what's his name, Rubio, wants himself to run Cuba. Trump says he's going to run Venezuela. That will be interesting. How do you think that's going to go?
Well, I mean, I don't think Trump. What question is, what does that mean? I mean, I don't think running Venezuela means the United States is going to be on the ground in Caracas, running stuff on a day-to-day basis. But Trump seems to believe, and I think his cabal, Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, and others seem to believe that just by using our military to control what goes in and out of the country's ports, we can generate enough leverage to force them to bend to our will and make decisions that, appease the wishes of the Trump administration. It's complicated though. And Venezuela is an autonomous country. It's a sovereign nation. And, but on the other hand, I think the Maduro government, even before he was taken out of the country, was willing and even talking to the Trump administration about how to cut deals so they could stay in power and they could basically split the oil revenue.
Well, the big question, and I'm going to turn it over to people with their hands up, but the big question, the elephant in the room is the petrodollar. And there's a lot of theories that say that Maduro was actually becoming a threat to the petrodollar by linking up with Brazil and China and not doing business in the dollar. And there are those who believe that that's really why we overthrew Gaddafi, because he was going to do an African currency, and Saddam Hussein was talking about doing business in euros. How much credibility do you give to the importance of the petrodollar in this invasion?
I think it's a significant factor. And, look, 80% plus of Venezuela's oil was going to China, but that was less than 1% of what China was using for oil. So it wasn't like critically important to China. It was critically important to Venezuela. And, I think this is about dominating the hemisphere and trying to extract resources for the United States or United States companies. I do think getting out of the dollar is extremely threatening to the global capitalist economy, which is dominated by the United States. There is no doubt, and I think it is a major factor. And there's other factors as well. I mean, I think if you look at sort of the policy factors that drove this decision, I think from Trump, it was like, put on the show and let me exercise power. I mean, Trump is a very weak, cowardly man, in my opinion, who tries to compensate or overcompensate by this adventurism. I mean, he was a draft dodger. He would never serve in the military. He has, in my opinion, no personal courage to do that kind of thing. So, Trump has his mix of things. Marco Rubio has the traditional anti-communist, Cuban, agenda from Cubans who immigrated to the United States. I think he's driven by a lot by ideology and sort of laying the groundwork to, I think, try to go into Cuba and change the regime there. And I think, Stephen Miller and his crowd just like to project power. He did an interview the other day with Jake Tapper, which was just
Oh my God, I saw it.
crazy, right?
Sounded like his interview, Stephen Miller's interview with Jake Tapper sounded like Hermann Goering justifying the invasion of Poland.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically exactly the same rhetoric.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think the media coverage of all this has been really weak. I mean, the mainstream media, they write about all these crazy events that completely transgress the rules-based world order. And no matter what you think about that, and I get that was set up to serve capital, I get that. But it also provided the benefits of at least some predictability in how the world goes about its business, and that it prevented countries, generally speaking, from invading other countries. And all those bets are off. And it's really freaky now to live in a world where, again, there's this gangsterism. And look, Putin did his thing with Ukraine. I think China actually is the superpower now that probably most respects and benefits from the rules-based world order. But I think there's a lot of very unpredictable dynamics at play here that could lead to real disasters. I mean, I don't know if people are realizing, like, if you read the New York Times, it's like, they're just like reporting this as if it's normal shit. Then that's how the New York Times normalizes this kind of crazy, insane behavior.
Stephen,
Yeah.
we have a guy from CBS, David Saltman, a producer. If
I
we
know
turn the
David.
camera
Steve
on-
and Dave, Steve, thank you for jumping there. Steve and Dave know each other. Let's call on Dave Saltman. Donald, Nicole, Salman will get to you. Dave Saltman knows Steve and knows the media. Go ahead, Dave, please.
Hey, Steve, good to see you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Great.
I admired your daily fight through the election and through the campaign. You were out there punching it out every day. Really, really sorry that the decision wasn't the decision was rigged. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, good to see you. I have a question for you. To what degree do you think?
Whoop. That's amazing. Yeah.
That's a cliffhanger. What
Timing.
happened there?
I think Barry Weiss grabbed him.
Yeah, right.
Took him
Right.
away.
Let's
Spiked
go to
his
Donald Smith
recording.
and stand up, and then hopefully Salter will reappear. That's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so my question is related to it connects both the ICE problem with ICE raids on immigrants and the issue of Venezuela, and that is to what extent is the migration crisis of people coming from Latin America to the U.S. the result of U.S. imperialism in South America, the regime change operations, sanctions, especially in Venezuela, and economic exploitation. So what's particularly cruel about the Republican immigration policies is that those people came here largely to escape oppression and poverty caused by U.S. policies. I wanted you to comment on that, particularly in Venezuela, because U.S. sanctions have been brutal there in Venezuela.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you for the question. I think it's important to tie Trump's anti-immigrant policies with these imperialist gangsterism policies in Latin America and all over the world. There's no doubt that economic conditions in Latin America that drive a lot of migration, but there's also climate change and all sorts of issues owe themselves largely to the policies of the United States. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, first of all, the severity of climate change is driven primarily by the fossil fuel industry, and the United States large oil companies have a major kind of role in that happening. Climate change is driving migration. On top of that, sanctions of Venezuela and other countries are creating conditions of life that are so miserable that people want to leave and come to this country at great risk. Many of them risk their lives, bring their kids, walk thousands or hundreds of miles to get to our borders. And I think a lot of the cruelty of the anti-immigrant policies are sort of the domestic version of the cruelties of our foreign policy. And I think Stephen Miller's whole approach, I mean, your previous speaker talked about white Christian nationalism. I mean, the immigration policies are obviously directly related to trying to make the United States a white nation, as if that's, white people and Christians are the people who have the most right to this territory.
They consider themselves, dare I say it, the master race.
Yeah, they do. It's totally racist, white supremacist crap. And I also think it's the other side of the coin to the military adventurism, and you've got to see them both together. And also the cruelty. I mean, first of all, there were, I don't know, 80 or 100 people killed in Venezuela. Think of what just happened in Minneapolis. I really believe the biggest danger, the biggest next danger is Trump taking what he's doing with the outright murders of fishermen and other people in boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific who reportedly are running drugs. I think a lot of these boats have no drugs on them. I think they're just fishermen. Even if they did have drugs, obviously it wouldn't be legal to do this. The ICE shooting people and abducting people in this country, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's basically a president who runs roughshod over the law, doesn't give a damn about the rule of law, and believes he has the power to be a dictator. I mean, he calls himself a king. I mean, he is a fascist at heart. And I'm not the only one saying that. I mean, there's a major military leader, I think Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Trump during his first term, said he's a fascist at heart. He is a fascist at heart. This is how he thinks, how he feels. And he wants all power to himself without constraint. Obviously, it's been made totally worse by the fact our Supreme Court, in my opinion, is no longer a court. It's a political arm of the Maga movement. So the top court has given him a green light to do virtually anything he wants. So occasionally they'll rule against him a little bit. And I think that's just to remind people, it's just really an effort for them to maintain some modicum of credibility with the public. But we don't have in this country a check on his power. I mean, think about it, guys. Like, we don't have a real opposition party. I mean, I know we're all Democrats, but the Democratic Party is no longer a real opposition party. It got so hollowed out, since the Clinton years, that when the moment in our history came where we needed a party to stand up to fascism, it has failed. There's no there. I mean, I have a friend in Europe who's like, why aren't more people on the streets of America? And my answer is because there's no the vehicles that allow mass mobilization to occur, which are political parties or labor unions, really don't exist anymore in this country to the degree needed to mobilize. And I think that we live in a very perilous time because I don't see an opposition party. I just don't. And I don't know. I don't think, there's obviously a lot of energy to fight this. I mean, most people are opposed to it. When Bernie and AOC went out on the road, they had, tons of people were turning out. You see what happened when Zoran Mandami, that kind of candidate runs, gets massive support. But the system is so good at silencing those voices like Mandami's before they can become viable, through campaign finance, the fact there's a money tax just to get in the system, the fact that Fox News and so much of the corporate media tries to beat down those types of voices as they tried to do to Zoran, creates a situation where it's very hard to, oppose this in an effective systemic way. And like, where does the energy go? So I mean, I would argue Bernie and AOC, the energy they were generating on that tour was funneled right back into the Democratic Party led by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, and it just dissipated. So until we get a vehicle to harness this energy, which totally exists on a national scale, we're going to have a very hard time stopping Trump. And what's going to happen, I ask, if he tries to cancel the midterms or cancel the election or steal the election or, do those machinations, how does that get stopped if the courts aren't going to stop it and the people have no way to mobilize in any mass kind of way? And like, I'm not giving up. Like, I'm not saying Trump is going to be able to achieve that, because I think a lot of people are onto him now, and I think there is a lot of opposition, and elections will take place in some form. So I'm not giving up, and I'm mildly optimistic we're going to get rid of this guy. But in the next 3 years, a massive amount of damage will be done. And I think we're in an extremely weak state in terms of our ability to oppose Trump.
The problem is the money.
Yeah.
If you've got a guy who can spend $300 million in a single, and I'm sure it was way more than that Elon Musk admitted to in 2024.
Yeah.
And you got CBS being bought, and it's all about the money as the bottom line here, and nothing else matters to them.
This is what Orban and Putin both did in their respective countries. I mean, it didn't just happen overnight. It was like a process over a few years where the major media companies were forced to sell themselves to the industrialists, the oligarchs in Hungary, for example. Same thing in Russia. And
Right.
little by little, the available political space shrinks to the point where, you basically have a dictator with the trappings of a fake democracy to make it look like people are expressing their will when they're
Right.
not. And like, that's the model that all these guys in the White House have studied. And that's the model. That's why Orban was popular in the Trump crowd in his first term. They were all going over to Hungary to study what Orban did.
It's all the billionaires who have all the money to buy the system that
Yeah.
are really the problem. And now you got these two Google clowns who moved out of California where they made their fortune so they don't have to pay tax as if they need the money. David Solomon, you're back with us. Please get your question in
Yeah, look at
real
that.
quick. I want to point out, by the way, we have 87 people with us who've been with us for 2 hours. So, I couldn't keep my classes this long. Go ahead, David, please. Oh no, you're frozen again.
No.
Salty. What's happening? Barry Weiss is sabotaging your
Okay.
situation here. Solomon, well, let's go to Tatanka Bricka,
Yep.
who started real quick. Tatanka, we're running out of time, so go for it.
Well, first I was wanting to get Salty back on because he's been on, but hasn't been. But okay.
Go.
Stephen, two things. I think you're really laying it out well. We need to continue the conversation about the political party. That's really, really important. And the possibility of the progressive Democrats, together with 70,000 young people under 30 running for office who don't want anything to do with the Democratic Party because they associate it just with the corporate Democrats. That's an extremely important issue. And I do believe Trump saying he's floating the idea about canceling the elections is an admission that he can't win without cheating. Okay, what I want to say is a thought that you have. Is this possible? In addition to the importance of the dollar and saving the petrodollar, is that is it possible that the Stephen Miller, the whole plan that they have, bypassing what you said about the fall of the war and going right back to raw power, going right back to the Northern Industrial Alliance, the purpose of the colonization of the world is to avail ourselves of the raw materials that we are entitled to. So he's going straight out with that. Is it possible that this Titanic we're on includes the Project 2025, where 40, 50 years ago, they're planning what they need to do. And they're so empowered and thinking that they can get away with where America is, that they've got everything on the table right now without realizing that business can't operate. The whole American empire is exposed to the world now, and no business can operate with that level of chaos and with that level of unpredictability. And that we're in a situation now where they can't even turn around. They're all committed to that. Everybody's in. What do you think about that? And then I have one more question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I think that it would be a mistake to assume that all Trump is really representing is the business class in general, because I do think you hit on an important point. The way he governs creates so much inherent instability that it really runs against what businesses really want, which is predictability. I mean, the tariffs are the obvious.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
he goes back and forth on the tariffs because it's all about him. He wants the attention. He wants the power. He wants people to come negotiate with him.
To be clear, I'm not saying that Trump understands that. I'm saying he's into the MAGA and doesn't even understand business. Go ahead.
I think I agree with you. I think Trump actually is there's a huge element, in my opinion, no disrespect to Trump, but there's a huge element of stupidity in a lot of his decisions. I mean, some people say he's a genius. Some people say he's stupid. He might have a little bit of both. Both can be true at the same time, but there is no doubt a huge element of stupidity, in my opinion, with what he's doing with the tariff policy, what he's doing with Venezuela right now, what he might do with Cuba, Greenland. I mean, I think he is on a power trip. I think he wants to compensate for the hurt. I don't mean to be an armchair psychologist, but like I read his niece's book. Read his book if you really want to know his psychology. He got really hurt by his parents who were really bad to him, and he's been walking around hurt his whole life and trying to compensate for it. And now he has control of the military, creating a police state. It's really crazy shit that's happening now, and I think it's largely driven. You can explain it psychologically, but you can also explain it because of his view of. He wants money, he's corrupt, he wants his family to have money, he wants to help his buddies, and he just wants power.
Yeah.
But in the bigger picture, in the bigger historical picture, the mega shift we have going on is that China is becoming the #1 global power.
Yeah.
And the United States, and MAGA is a backward-looking movement, same as the Nazis. Make Germany great again. The attempt to get back to some ideal mythological path.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And I'll say, China has its shit together. Like the state is run intelligently and rationally. And then you have other forces of power that have emerged, the BRICS nations, for example, that have really subtracted from the US global dominance. And I think our empire is seriously in decline. And I think there's like this decision, well, we're just going to take what's ours in this hemisphere. And I think what happened in Venezuela, is a reflection of that. I mean, Trump recalls all the ambassadors from Africa. There's a dose of racism in that, but there's also a retreat from US power, right? And you're seeing this in a lot of places all over the world. And I think, look, dismantling USAID. I mean, all the mechanisms of soft power that a rational capitalist empire would need to govern its interests effectively he is dismantling, and you have to ask why. And
well, one thing that's also happening, Stephen, is that the world energy supply, which is the core of the global economy, is absolutely shifting
yeah.
from fossil fuels and nuclear power to solar, wind, and you know, people can roll their eyes, but 90% of the new electrical generating capacity in the world is solar and has been for a number of years.
So I got a question for you on that point. Why do you think, given that that's the direction in which the world is heading, and China has obviously been leading and has completely repositioned itself economically to take advantage of that and to push that trend, why is Trump going in the exact opposite direction, trying to shut down solar and everything's fossil fuels? Like,
because his backers are giving him money. He's totally engrossed in the fossil nuclear world. And they cannot handle renewable energy. Renewable energy is a bigger threat than global communism ever was. But the reality is that all the numbers are working for renewables. And do not underestimate the global impact of this transition. We could power California next week 100% on renewables because of the breakthroughs in batteries. Batteries have changed everything because you don't have periodicity anymore. You get 24/7 power with wind, solar, and batteries. And
I want to add to that as well. And in the
That's not here.
go ahead real quick.
I want to add to that on the why. And it gets back to the secrets. We're not just talking about the Epstein secrets. We're not just talking about 9/11, JFK, all of which is important. There are the secrets of all the patents stolen by the patent office that had free energy. There's also the secrets, and don't glaze your eyes, of the UFO situation, because now it is entirely clear. Everything said, yes, the oil companies, the nuclear giants, they're running the world, and they bought a political party, and they bought Trump lock, stock, and barrel. But the oldest secret in our country that holds the military industrial complex that every president knew about, because they were all taken to Area 51, but it's not their pay grade to talk about it. The oldest secret is that we've been reverse engineering since even before Eisenhower. We've had free energy. We have never needed the oil wars. And the whole internal dynamic of the military industrial complex, including people in the Pentagon, you have MAGA people in the Pentagon that now have been pushing for a nuclear war because they, to bring in the religious element, can't stand the idea that they've known that the UFOs have shut down the aircraft carriers. They've shut down the vehicles coming out of Baja California. They've shut down the space things. They've shut everything down. They can't get it up when they want to get it up. And their identity is so tied with national security. They're pushing the president into global nuclear war because they, the MAGAs, will go to heaven with Jesus and take care. This is a real situation. So to get that secret out, that we're not alone, never have been alone, actually provides, in this future discussion, the way to break the American people out of the trance that we're in to take care of business, because it's the only thing that unites everybody in DC already.
Thank you, Tatanka, and we're going to deal with that in 2 weeks in greater detail. Steve, have you encountered this discussion, A, on renewables and B, on UFOs?
Can I say something? Because I got here late. Hey, Howie.
It's Harvey. It's
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Dorothy, my friend Dorothy. Yeah. Good to see you, my friend. Go.
Yeah, I heard an interesting discussion this morning on Ian Masters, where the person, I forget who it was, but said that we have been spending all of our time since World War II cultivating the Eurasian continent, which has 70% of the people in the world and 80% of the productivity, and that Trump is busy giving away Eurasia, which is going to kill the United States. Do you have any comment on that, Steve?
Well, I don't know if you were here, but I've always believed, like, I think Trump is kind of stupid and unsophisticated at a serious level. And I think he doesn't had the ability to think all this stuff through. I think he's so selfish and focused on his own personal enrichment that he doesn't, he doesn't rationally represent the American empire, the interests of the American empire. He interferes with those interests because he's so focused on himself. And, in that process, he's also helping a handful of his allies, his billionaire allies, and those who've cozied up to him. And I think that, the United States as an empire is in serious decline. Look, it already was under threat because of what other people have said on this call, China and the BRICS countries, even South Africa, which, led the filing of the genocide case against Israel, which is important. Like there's all, Ireland joins, all the countries that have joined South Africa, the Hague Group organized by Colombia to fight Israel over its war crimes in Gaza. All of these things have challenged U.S. hegemony. And I think Trump is not smart enough to work through that in a way that projects U.S. power to the optimal degree, if that's sort of where your head's at. I mean, it's not where my head's at, but it's like that. But it's just what's so interesting about Trump to me, or one of the interesting things, is he's a very bizarre representative for the top manager of the global empire of the United States. He's undermining it in so many ways, including the point you make, Dorothy. And I think the real beneficiaries of this, those celebrating this, first and foremost, are obviously China, Russia,
Brazil. How important is Brazil in all this?
I think Brazil is incredibly important. To me, Brazil is sort of one of the countries like India that is sort of exists with feet in both camps and sort of has a lot of leverage to figure out, what way it wants to go. And I think Brazil is another country with a really solid leader right now who leads with humanity, compassion, and with rationality. There's things I wish Lula would do differently, but like the bottom line is, I think Brazil is a growing power that, like Mexico, under Claudia Sheinbaum, Colombia under Petro. Like these are countries that really threaten Trump and Rubio's, and Stephen Miller's vision of American hegemony, which is unbridled, out of control. And as I said, the mask is off, and they took it off. Like
but here's the question: How close are China, India, Brazil, Mexico, the BRICS countries? How close are they to breaking the petrodollar? And what will happen to the American economy when the petrodollar is broken?
I don't know enough to answer that question intelligently. I mean, what's your answer?
I think they're damn close. I happened to look at the price of metals the other day. I mean, they're through the roof. Gold and silver are just, skyrocketing. What does that say about the future of the dollar? And if the petrodollar goes, what happens to the American economy?
Well, there's nothing to replace the petrodollar. There's not another currency.
Well, China and Venezuela do business with the oil with the yuan, with the Chinese, whatever it is, dollar. And the BRICS countries are more than prepared or are ready to replace the petrodollar with something. And as I mentioned,
crypto. I want to replace it with crypto.
Well, no, crypto is a whole other nightmare.
Sonny, we've got a few people with their hands up who haven't had a chance to speak, and we're kind of running out of time.
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll terminate. We'll have a closure at the top of the hour because I know WGRN and Steve. Do you want to mention? By the way, we are on this. This show is on at least 5 other radio stations that we didn't know about, but before in the Pacifica network. So we're going to spread the reach over the next couple of weeks. And Steve,
I was wondering about
Steve. I hope you'll keep coming back, bro.
Oh, hell yeah! Listen, I love you guys. You guys have supported me. Before we go, I just want to mention that I'm trying to get my law license back. Right now, it's my latest campaign. Chevron took my license without a hearing or orchestrated, the seizure of my law license. So if you go to my website, which is freedonziger.com, you can check out what we're doing and help. And I'm going to need to mobilize a lot of people to pressure these authorities who run the New York bar to move on my petition. But I have a significant amount of support from some very prominent lawyers. And, Look, I never approach these battles with Chevron with any great hope that I'll win any one battle, but I think it's extremely important that we continue the fight. And I also want to say that the communities in Ecuador that won the judgment, their judgment is still viable. This case is not over. And there are other lawyers. I'm not a lawyer anymore. There are other lawyers, people other than myself, obviously, who are exploring taking the case forward and going after Chevron's assets in these other countries. By the way, that's one reason why Chevron always tries to cozy up to governments, and in this case, Trump. And they're going to sort of play the game in Venezuela for many reasons. And one of the reasons is when people like Steve Donziger go to try to get a pardon for the bogus criminal conviction that I had to suffer in a non-jury trial because I wouldn't give Chevron my confidential case file, like they'll be positioned to block it. They want to be positioned to block my bar reinstatement petition.
Well,
And
it's astounding that a private corporation could walk into the legal system and take your law license, but put your a thing in the chat, your contacts. We're at the top of the hour. We're going to keep going. We still have 82 people with us, for God's sakes. So, Steve, if you can stay, we can prolong this.
I'm happy to say. Do you want to keep? You want me to keep? You want to keep
Stay
asking
with us.
questions?
You're fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us what your website is, how people can get in touch with you.
It's freedonziger.com. Donziger is Donziger. Separately, I have a fundraising campaign on the Chuff platform. If you go to chuffed, chuffed.org, it's an Australian-based platform that, you can get it on my website. That's it right there.
All right.
I know, look, for those who follow me, I know I'm constantly raising money because that's the only way I can survive this shit. And I apologize that we send out too many letters, but every little bit helps. And I've had over 50,000 people make small donations to me over the last 5 years around the world, which is amazing. I mean, thank you everyone, by the way, who out there who gives a damn and knows about this and helps support us. And the solidarity has been overwhelming. But we're moving on to the next battle. And ultimately, if I get my law license back, it'll make it a hell of a lot easier to crank up the enforcement cases against Chevron to potentially move $10 billion from the north to the south. And I just want to say, like, we can do this. Like, this is a one of its kind environmental judgment. It's been affirmed unanimously by Ecuador's Supreme Court. It's been affirmed unanimously for enforcement purposes by Canada's Supreme Court. 6 appellate courts have validated the judgment. Even 2 Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, ruled that the case against me that landed me in prison was unconstitutional. Like, it's pretty crazy. Like, we have a lot working for us. And ultimately, if I get the license, it's going to make it a lot easier to organize the lawyers in other countries to go after their assets. I'm not giving up. The communities of Ecuador are fucking suffering like you cannot believe because of what Chevron did over 25 years of systematically dumping cancer-causing waste into their rivers and waterways that they rely on for their drinking water, bathing, and fishing. And many, many people have died and continue to, die and to risk dying because this pollution has never been cleaned up, even though Chevron lost the case. I don't have a lot of affection for Chevron, as you can probably divine from what I've been saying on this call.
I should hope not.
No, I mean, shit. So when I see them going into Venezuela, and I'm sure they think they're going to make billions of dollars out of Venezuela, while the people 2 countries down in Ecuador, thousands of people are dying of cancer because of pollution they left behind. And that's how they roll. They're in Israel. They did a joint venture with Israel, essentially stealing Palestinian gas off the coast of Gaza, which generates, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue every year for the Israeli government. Venezuela, Ecuador. I can't even explain the amount of countries they're in where they continually use this business model of hyper exploitation and lack of respect for the law to make as much money as possible. And then they cozy up to Trump for protection. It's mafioso in the extreme.
Right.
That's what's
Right.
happening. But I need help.
Yeah.
So go to my website, freedonziger.com, if you can.
Fantastic to have you. We're beyond the top of the hour. We're going to go to
I have a question.
California time. And then, we will, Steve, if the longer you can stay is fine. You'll be
Yeah.
back with us in 2 weeks. We will not be here for Martin Luther King Day. You should be out marching against ICE. And Solomon Bletcher, go ahead. will run the.
Yeah, I was just wondering, it was a quick question. I was wondering,
Oh, because it's
Stephen,
big?
about how you learned about the people in Ecuador in the first place and how you met them and what the logistics of that were. Like,
I
were
mean,
you in an
question.
organization first?
Yeah.
The short answer is when I was in law school at Harvard in 1990, 1991, there was a student there whose dad was from Ecuador, and they knew about it, and they organized an initial delegation to investigate, which we went down in 1993. They invited me to participate, and that's how I got involved. And on that trip, I met, local community leaders, and they hired us essentially to represent them in a lawsuit. So I was invited to go on a delegation way back in 1993.
Good for you. And you've made a huge difference in all of this. Nicole Ong has been waiting, and then we'll go back. Nicole, go ahead.
Hi.
Nicole? Wow,
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Steve, have you heard of Trials International? It's in Switzerland, and it would sue corporations, who violate sanctions and violate human rights, and they do it for free.
What's the name of the organization?
Trial International. I put it in the chat three
Okay.
times.
Thank
And
you.
Can you spell it, Nicole?
TRIAL.
Trial.
Yeah, international.
I just put it back in there. It's
Dot
just back
org.
in at the bottom of the chat.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Wait, I have another real question.
Go ahead, go.
Are you in touch with the Venezuelan and the Cuban or the Latino in South Florida? And I would like to know if they still have like one single deciding issue, whether they want to remove the dictators in their country as a priority, or whether they rather see extend their since they can't vote anyway, extend their refugee status in the United States.
Yeah, that's a great question that I don't really know the answer to because I don't really have a lot of contact with those communities.
Okay.
Thank you. Ruth Strauss, and then we'll go back to Tatanka. Ruth, go ahead. Ruth is our
Stephen,
our
I thought I
our
was
cardiologist from Alabama. Go ahead, Ruth.
I thought I was keeping up with you. What is this about? You're not a lawyer anymore, or whatever. What is that?
So there was just a little background. After we won the case in Ecuador, Chevron then launched a multi-pronged attack on me. Okay, that was to take all my money, which they did. They got a order to make me reimburse them for their legal fees, which they paid lawyers to persecute me. And one of the things they did is they got a judgment against me in a non-jury trial that I committed fraud in Ecuador, which has been rejected by every real court that's looked at it. It was based on paid-for witness testimony by a corrupt Ecuadorian witness that Chevron coached for 53 days before he testified in New York against me. It's a longer story, which I'm writing about right now in a book, but I just want to say that as part of that process, they took the judge's ruling in this non-jury trial, and the judge and his colleagues sent it to the Bar Grievance Committee and asked them to disbar me based on the judge's findings, which relied on this false witness testimony. So when they initiated proceedings to sanction me, they refused to let me have a fact hearing where I could challenge the judge's fake facts based on this paid-for witness who had been coached for 53 days, who, by the way, later admitted under oath that he had lied in this trial against me. So it was orchestrated by the judges, by Chevron's law firm, and they wouldn't allow me to contest the facts of this erroneous decision by a U.S. judge that contradicts the decisions of 28 different appellate judges in Ecuador and Canada. And as a result, I lost my law license. And this happened, by the way, in 2019. And it's now been,
7 years.
It's been 7 years that I have not had my law license. And by the way, this is why I'm always raising money, because I basically lost my ability to earn a living the way I always earned a living. But I'm continuing my advocacy, as you can see if you follow me on social media or just watch me. but I can't do it in court. I can't do it in court. And I think I would venture to say, and I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous in any way, but I think Chevron and the fossil fuel industry does not want to see me in court. I think they're very threatened by the idea of me being back in court.
And I want to say also again that, not to beat the horse here, but well, let's beat the horse. That the renewable energy industry, which people like to put to the side, if we were all on wind and solar here, none of this would be happening. And we have the technology now. There's no more, the numbers are all in our favor. The number one is to shut the nuclear plant in California, Diablo, and get California 100% renewable, which is where Germany is now headed. And then, Venezuela wouldn't even be on the map. I do want to very quickly, there are a few videos people out there should see. I just watched the one from Dave Matthews in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dave Matthews made a great video that everybody should look up. The rock musician, and also the Steve Kerr, the coach of the San Francisco Warriors, has come out with great statements about all this. There's also a column by Dave Zirin, the sports commentator, talking about all the sports heroes who have been on the right side of things. And I want to give a big thumbs down to Stephen A. Smith, who's a sports commentator. I don't even want to mention what he said, but screw him. What a jerk. But anyway, go see the Dave Matthews video. You guys will love it. It's really, really cool, as is he. Okay, Steve Caruso, you've been waiting. Go ahead, Steve. And then Tatanka, and then Heidi.
You always catch me off guard there.
Go for it.
The revolution of electric lighting in houses, this is what I compare to what's happening now with oil. That oil is going to be a thing of the past. Electricity will rule. It's cheaper. It's easier. It doesn't pollute. It comes free from the sun every day. How many 1,300 watts per square meter in every city, household, whatever, So this whole thing also about fascism that's going on in the country that we have to denazify. That means the threat to end Maga stands here that they will be denazified like they did in Germany. So count on it. This is fascism, and anybody that's in complicity with it, with the treason of avoiding the Constitution, ignoring the people's rights, SCOTUS, Congress, the DOJ, and the executive office will all be held accountable. Thank you.
From your lips to God's ears, as they say. I also want to acknowledge my writing buddy, Carl Grossman, one of the great godfathers of the safe energy movement. Steve, I don't know if you and Carl know each other. Carl's on Long Island, just finishing up a 50-year career as a journal professor. Great guy, great writer. So when we're together in New York, we'll have to have Carl with us.
Great.
Okay. Tatanka, let me defer to Dorothy real quick and then to you. Dorothy and then Tatanka, please, and then Heidi.
Yeah, just curious, what's happening with that Greenpeace case that you were working on?
Are you involved with the Greenpeace case, Steve?
Yeah, I am.
I'm a voting member of Greenpeace, so go ahead.
Okay, so for those who don't know, Greenpeace was sued by Energy Transfer Pipeline Company on a bogus slap lawsuit and in a rigged trial, in my opinion. I monitored it. Energy Transfer won an outrageous $700 million judgment against Greenpeace for supposedly, various statements they made that the jury found were defamatory. They were not defamatory. The case, Dorothy, is under appeal. The judge already have the judgment in a post-trial motion, and it's headed to the North Dakota Supreme Court. What's interesting is Greenpeace has a countersuit in Amsterdam against the company under a European anti-SLAPP law that I think could ultimately create a situation where Energy Transfer pays Greenpeace rather than Greenpeace paying Energy Transfer. I think that since the verdict, this was such an outrageous verdict. I think the company has really lost a lot of ground in the last 6 or 7 months since that verdict came down. Our work as trial monitors, I helped organize a bunch of lawyers to monitor this trial, which is, by the way, can be a very effective thing in the United States to monitor these bogus trials. And there was a monitoring committee on my trial when I got convicted of this contempt of court that really helped tremendously. So we pulled one together for Greenpeace, and our report of this trial, which is going to be about a 75-page report, is going to be coming out soon. So we're trying to build political support for Greenpeace. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on, but this really matters. This is the tip of the spear to essentially destroy environmental advocacy. If they can shut down Greenpeace, they're going to start going after other environmental organizations. And, this relates to Venezuela, right? This relates to, everything we're talking about with Trump's emphasis on oil and fossil fuels, because, one byproduct of Venezuela, one byproduct of Israel's, war on the people of Gaza is you have massive environmental problems now around the world. The Pentagon, our Pentagon is the biggest polluter in the world and is unleashed to go wherever it wants, wage war and engage in all sorts of adventurism. And the climate crisis is worsening as we speak, and fewer people are focused on it or talking about it because of all these existential threats we're facing. So, Greenpeace is a symbol for environmental advocacy, and they want to destroy, like they want to destroy so much else, environmental advocacy. So we need to stand by Greenpeace. If you go to the Greenpeace website, you can learn more about the trial, or we have a website for our independent work called trialmonitors.org. And on that website, you can get all of our articles and information about how effed up this trial was.
It's amazing. I was hired into Greenpeace in 1991. I love Greenpeace. It's the world's greatest kid club with its own Navy. And Steve, I didn't know you were working on Greenpeace's behalf, and I'm very encouraged by that. So another reason for us to drink a toast when we get together. Tatanka Bricka, go ahead, please. Tatanka,
Yes,
back.
I just wanted to give you a chance to answer the question that we got cut off on, where Sonny said, how do you respond to the renewables argument, and how do you respond to UFOs?
So the renewables argument, remind me, what part of that argument?
Well, the point is that if the whole world went to solar, wind, and batteries, we wouldn't be having any of these fights over Venezuelan oil.
Well, I mean, my response to that's absolutely true. But why, the deeper question is, why doesn't it happen? Because it would be so good for the world. So why doesn't it happen?
And that's
the point
why
is, though, it is happening.
No. I'm saying, yes, it's happening, but not fast enough. Okay.
Exactly.
And I'm saying one of the reasons why it isn't happening fast enough is because of all the secrets, and that's how I brought in UFOs. So I'm wondering if you're up on that, if you know about that. And the work of Danny.
I don't know a lot about the UFO issue, except that I've talked to people who are into that issue, and I'm kind of generally familiar with how whatever information the government has been suppressed for decades, and there's an effort to get it out. I haven't really studied that issue. I look, all of these issues I take seriously. I just don't.
What we'll do, Steve, is we'll have you, Danny, Shan, and Tatanka on in 2 weeks, and we'll stir the pot.
I'd love to. I know Danny, man, I respect greatly, is very much into that
Okay,
issue.
so we'll do that. Tatanka, the second hour in 2 weeks will be about the Green Revolution, and I'll have my Greenpeace hat, and we'll rock and roll. That'll be great. Maybe we can get Dave Matthews. Okay. We got 2 more minutes because we really have to cut this off.
And thank you so much, Steve. Thank you
for your questions.
Steve, you've been fantastic. It's great always to have you in on, I know what happened to Dave Saltman. We'll have to get him back into the mix here. And also Carl Grossman, who's a major, major asset. Betty Kisselov, and then Heidi, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Betty, please.
Quick question.
HEDY TRIPP, thank you very much for coming with us and for organizing that report from Minneapolis. It was devastating, and we'll have to have you back with us in 2 weeks as well. Betty, go ahead.
Steve, I was just wondering, are you following at all of the work of Ecocide International?
I am extremely close to them. I love what they do. That is such an important initiative. For those who don't know, it's a law to basically create a new atrocity crime called ecocide, which is the wanton or deliberate destruction of the environment such that it threatens the existence of a people based on some sort of identity like nationality or ethnicity or race. I would argue, by the way, that what Chevron did in Ecuador is the very definition of ecocide.
I hear you. Yes.
And if this law were to take effect, and I think we're heading in that direction, it would be the equivalent of genocide, of crimes against humanity.
Absolutely.
And those who commit it, that is the executives at Chevron or other private companies that engage in massive pollution that, threatens the existence of a people, could be subject to trial and criminal liability. This is really
Absolutely.
important because the only recourse, like my clients have in Ecuador against Chevron's executives that's viable, is civil liability. That is suing the company for money, which we did and we won the case. But that money, should it ever be paid, will never come out of the pockets of the decision makers who played God in Ecuador and decided it would be viable to dump billions of gallons of cancer-causing oil waste into the environment, and to sort of shift their decision-making calculus such that they have to think through, hey, if I do this, I could end up in a trial in prison, I think is going to be very significant in terms of
Absolutely.
recognizing these activities as what they are, which are really crimes against humanity. So I'm totally into that, by the way. If you Google "Stop Ecocide," you can find the website. My friend Jojo Mehta is sort of the person leading that project, but it's to me, it's one of the 5 most important legal initiatives to protect the environment in the world right now.
In my world, in our world also, number one on our is to shut the nuclear plant in California. If we do that, then we have the 4th and 5th largest economies, Germany and California, in the post-nuclear mode, and both countries can go 100% renewable and change the whole, as Germany is very quickly, by the way, and change the whole dialectic on energy on this planet. Thank you very much. Heidi, real quick, and then we got to go. We still have 62 people with us. It's unreal. Heidi, go ahead real quick, please.
Yes, I was wondering, were you involved with the Pioneers Learning the Rights of Nature course with Thomas Lindsay and Mari Margul?
The Pioneers.
I was not involved with them. I know about the rights of nature movement. Ecuador, country I'm fond of, was at the forefront of that. Totally into that, but I'm not involved with that course you mentioned.
It's a good one. I remember the Pioneers were Kenny and Ausubel and many others. I want to thank Kenny Bruno, by the way, for and Benno and Peter Montague for helping fund this going forward. This has been an astounding session, and another 2 hours and 20 minutes fly by here. Steve Donziger, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on. I'm so glad to hear you're defending my beloved Greenpeace. And everybody, Tatanka, Dave Saltman, wherever you've gone to, HEDY TRIPP, thank you everybody so much. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And Tatanka, if you can get Danny, we'll have Danny, Steve, and we'll really get to the bottom of all this stuff. No nukes, everybody. We'll see you in Solartopia. And dump ice, for God's sakes. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Steve Caruso.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Not Mike Hurst. No nukes. We'll see you in 2 weeks.